Greetings, fellow keepers. It's Soniel here with the Keeper's Corner. And before we do anything else, I do want to apologize that we haven't had any uploads in the last week or so. And unfortunately, we weren't able to get those Grim Harvest videos out for the last special campaign. Unfortunately, I suffered a pretty severe injury recently. And as a result, I'm not sure how much I'll be able to keep up with the Keeper's Corner for the next week or two while I figure out what's going on there. But we do have a new special campaign introduced on this beautiful Sunday evening, and it is very similar to the Golden Horde, which was the special Barbarian campaign. This will be the Valkyrie Expedition, and much like the other character-specific campaigns, you do require this character to be unlocked and in your party to participate. So if you have not unlocked the Valkyrie, unfortunately, this will be one of those ones you'll be locked out of. It's only about 6 chapters here, or 6 stages, so about a total of 18, or not about, a grand total of 18 stages altogether. But we will go ahead and have a run at these new campaign stages here with the Valkyrie, and have another opportunity to check out some of the different values of the Valkyrie and valuable setups using her. And one of the things that I've been preaching very heavily about the Valkyrie is she's arguably one of the best or the best tower attacker in the game, in my opinion. This comes in large part due to her on-death ability, that while it isn't very powerful in hero battles, it does a tremendous amount of damage to monsters and machines, and it really gives almost always a guaranteed resurrection, or the soul energy you need for a guaranteed resurrection after her death. So when she dies, you're able to bring her right back every time, which is incredibly valuable in tower attacks. Now, again, in hero battles, it's not quite the same because of the high value of the magic resistances on epic armor, but it is very similar in PvE campaigns. So we are going to go ahead and give her a go here in the PvE special campaign for her with this setup here, using the Warlock for the AoE damage. The Valkyrie up front will be our tank. We'll use the War Master here with this cooldown reduction setup, and the Cleric in the back line to revive her for any potential deaths. Now you do see here I have her equipped with the max Dark Defender on a +10 enchantment and the near maxed Dragon Scale armor. This is a more preferred setup for hero battles and such if you're going to try to use her there. In terms of tower attacks and whatnot, I do tend to like to use one of the weaker chainmails here, even the chain skin, which will allow her to proc that on-death ability a little more often. Of course, with the fully maxed chainmail armor, that does increase her survivability quite a bit. And the skill setup I always usually go with her here is the Shield of Wrath, the Righteous Bolt, and the Light of Wrath. And really, myself and another keeper that many of you I'm sure know, Jimren, have pretty much labeled this as the Soul Generation build. The basic setup here is going to allow you to maintain a high level of soul energy in PvE and tower attacks and things like that. But we'll go ahead and jump in and do these first couple stages, so that you guys can get a look at the completion rewards and the content here in this special campaign. And a couple other things I wanted to cover while we're here and recording and whatnot. I know we did just have the 2 most recent PvP events in hero battles over this weekend here and the weekend past. Today's the 14th, so the weekend of the 12th to the 15th or whatever it is. And we have recently had the 1.7, 1.71, 1.72 updates, and that has caused a litany of issues for iOS players, most specifically the rollback problems. Now, if you are one of those players that is experiencing regular rollbacks, for one, I sympathize with you. It's always a drag to lose any progress. One thing I would definitely advise, if you're capable of getting on your PC, if you have a viable PC at home, and setting yourself up on the Droid 4X Android emulator, that's going to allow you to play the game on the Android platform and avoid those rollbacks and things like that. But another thing that's gone fairly unnoticed by most, and maybe noticed by others and they couldn't quite figure it out, is the problem with equipment drops. Because of the increase in the keeper level, hero cap, or level cap rather, once you reach level 51, and you do, say, a stage that is over level 50, or you're doing catacombs, which scale to your keeper level in terms of item drops, you can't get any equipment drops. Because common and uncommon equipment maxes at level 50, the game doesn't know what to do. It doesn't have a level 51 or 54 or 55 item to give you for equipment. So it's only dropping monsters, skill points, and skill scrolls in those regards, and crafting materials as well. And I think the same goes with machines, because I don't think any common or uncommon machines go above level 50. So if you're like myself and, you do a ton of tower attacks or a lot of catacombs battles, and you seem like you haven't been getting as much loot as normal, that is the reason behind that. One of the very big upsides there is that the fix for that will be increasing the item level for common, or the maximum item level for common and uncommon equipment, up to 55. Now, for higher level players, that's going to really greatly increase the ability to do combinations on epic items and things more easily, and for a lower gold cost, or lower total cost. As we've discussed briefly before, using level 40, 42, 44 items on an epic item that's above level 50 is going to take dozens of those low level items to level it up. But if you're using level 50 items on a level 51 or 52 epic, it's going to only take 5 or 6 per level, sometimes even less. Now, as you can imagine, if you're using level 55 items, that's going to help you take your epics from level 55 to 65, or whatever the case may be, a lot more easily than using the level 50 ones. So, in both regards, the great folks at Ninja Kiwi are working on fixes for the rollback issues and for the equipment issues. So please try and be patient if you're one of the players that's been struggling with those things. As with any newer game, we got to keep in mind that we're only about 4.5 months into the global launch, or 4 months into the global launch of Tower Keepers here. And it really does take about 6 to 8 months to get all of the little, quirks and bugs polished out before everything is running smoothly and the player base is established and all that. So definitely just try and hang in there a little bit longer. I know some of you guys are getting really frustrated and having a hard time sticking with things with the rollbacks. So again, I do hope that you guys hang in there a little bit longer while they get these things fixed for us. And again, if you're able to hop on that Android emulator, it's called Droid 4X. If we're able to, we'll get a video on here soon about how to set it up and get it configured and a safe source to download it from and all that good stuff. But as you can see here in the Valkyrie's Expedition, these are pretty straightforward stages. They seem to be fairly themed in the style of the Chapter 4 Orc campaign. This is, of course, the same background for the Orc Overlord. Say that 10 times fast. And the Orc Horde, those kinds of stages. Very similar mobs, of course. So these probably won't be nearly as challenging as the most recent campaign, the Grim Harvest. This does seem a little bit like a extra reward, so to speak, for those who invested in the Valkyrie and maybe didn't get quite the return from her that they were hoping for. Now again, I do personally consider her to be one of my most valuable heroes, as I do so many tower attacks. And she serves me so well in that regard. So if you have picked her up and you're struggling with what to do with her, again, I suggest looking at those tower attack teams featuring her. Now, you do see here we did get this level 27 Odachi. It is important to note that if you're running any stages below, campaign stages or PvE stages below level 50, and you are a level 51 plus player, you will still get equipment drops. So if you go seek out like a level 49 stage, or if you do one of the boss stages that's below level 50, that's going to help you to pick up some equipment to either sell or combine with until that fix comes. Now we see the mashup of heroes on this particular stage is very nice in terms of monster farming. It seems you have the Vampire Lord, the Black Fist Evoker, the Covenant Assassin, Covenant Guardian, Corrupted Inquisitor. So just about all the valuable mobs, except for maybe the eyeballs and a few others, are packed into this one Valkyrie campaign mission here. Now that being said, I personally have received most of my Corrupted Inquisitors and monsters of that nature from tower attacks or catacombs. Although I do know there are a number of players who picked theirs up from farming particular campaign stages. I do apologize if the audio quality and such on this video is not up to par. I'm not using my traditional recording setup since I'm kind of bedridden here. Another important thing to note, however, about the Valkyrie here, and in terms of trying to figure out a use for her in hero battles or using her outside of tower attacks, is she does benefit very greatly from cooldown reduction. She has one of the lowest initiatives of any character in the game, as well as a stackable skill in the Shield of Wrath that allows her to gain a fair amount of bonus HP as well as bonus damage. And aside from the level 50 meta, which is what we're usually talking about when we talk about different heroes and different builds and whatnot here on this channel, in the level 30 to say probably 42 bracket in terms of hero battles, she is incredibly powerful from what I understand. There are a handful of keepers in that range that have told me they've had a tremendous amount of success with her using a fairly similar build. Some use Angelic Volley as opposed to the Righteous Bolt, along with that lightning damage passive. But again, in those level brackets, especially if you're able to equip her with like a Forbidden Blade and a Chain Skin before your opponents have epic armor and such available to them, she will be a very potent character to use in those hero battle settings. Now, for up to this point, the rewards so far don't seem to be too overwhelming in this Valkyrie campaign, so it doesn't seem anybody's missing too much by not being able to participate in this. The initial completion rewards are pretty nice with the gold and training points and whatnot on those chest stages or first completions, whatever you want to call them. But otherwise, it's not anything that you're really missing out on. And very similarly, the Grim Harvest, if you were one of the lower level players that was unable to complete the final stage featuring Marul, again, you didn't really miss out on anything. Marul as a captured monster is fairly useless. One of the problems with those PvE boss monsters that we've had so far, Korgan and Marul, is that their stats are scaled to where they appear in the campaign. Most importantly, their health is scaled to where they appear in the campaign. So even fully leveled up, Marul's stats aren't going to really rival another epic monster or even super rare monster. That being said, if we do get to the point that we see the Chapter 4, 5, and 6 bosses, especially the Chapter 5 and 6 bosses, if they at any point ever appear as captured monsters, will likely be very valuable for tower defense. But I can imagine we're quite a ways away from that. And additionally, I do know that there are a handful of other specialized hero campaigns in the midst. Some that I'm pretty sure are already completed. The Berserker is one I've heard might be out there already. So I do think we'll get a handful of these specialized character campaigns before we see any more revenge campaigns, so to speak. And again, I do apologize for not keeping up with the channel a little bit more lately. I know we've had a little bit of a growth spurt in population here in the Tower Keepers community and the Tower Keepers Discord, as well as a lot of up-and-coming players in the level 20 and 30 and 40 brackets who have been really needing a lot of help. One thing I can tell you there is that if I'm not putting up any new videos, you guys can always catch me on the Tower Keepers Discord server. We'll drop a link in the description here, along with my username and ID number. So if you ever need to contact me, if you've got any questions or if you just need help, you guys can always hit me up on there. You can also email me. My email is available in the About section on the Keeper's Corner page here. And I'll always try and get back to you guys as soon as possible. Of course, you can leave questions in the comments section as well. And, I'll always be there to help you guys out with hero battles, teams, or whatever you need help with. Oh, I see this guy here's got Avenge, this Vampire Lord in the back. I was wondering what killed our Warlock there. So it's definitely something to note. I usually take out Avenge stacks with AoE, or not AoE, with damage over time abilities. Obviously, a low tick damage over time is going to be your best bet for getting rid of that Avenge stack without taking a huge damage total in return. You definitely don't want to go hitting an Avenge character with a Demon Fire or one of your more powerful abilities. But as you can see here, this final stage is a very filled last room with quite a few high-level monsters. And there are a lot of the more valuable tower defense monsters here in this campaign, so again, it might be worth farming some of these stages for those. Now, again, keep in mind with the equipment drops, like we mentioned, once you get into these higher level stages, you aren't going to get any equipment drops over level 50. At least not for the time being. Hopefully that will be fixed fairly soon. But I will say that even with that problem in the equipment drops, I've been doing my regular, or even more towers than usual lately. And I've still been picking up a fair amount of gold and resources, and I've seen a lot of people getting void cores and things like that from their regular drops. So you're definitely not missing out on too much there. And we'll go ahead and do the hard and extremes here on the level 6 of the Valkyrie's Expedition. And as you see, like I said, the rewards aren't anything to write home about, so if you don't have the Valkyrie app, wouldn't really suggest running out to buy her just so you can do this campaign. I would, however, suggest picking her up for towers again, like I said. If, for one, you're running a night team or something and you don't have enough DPS output, you're struggling with certain towers. One of the most valuable things with her as well, aside from that on-death ability that we talked about, is because of her low initiative as well as her soul generation, it allows you to open up tower attack battles and things like that with this melt armor ability on trouble enemies. And as you can see, it crits pretty big against NPC mobs and machines and things like that. So if you're attacking a tower and it's got Inquisitors or Black Fist Evokers or things like that that you need to worry about, debuffing your DPS heroes or your healers or things like that, you can melt armor before they get any debuffs up. And whether you're using the Archmage or the Warlock, once you hit them with that first melt armor, it's usually going to allow Meteor Swarm or Shadow Sensor to finish them off or close to finish them off before they throw up those debuffs, which really helps in a ton of towers. You do have to be careful to measure when you're going to need heals first as opposed to the melt armor. There are a few tower setups out there that definitely dictate using your rapid regeneration almost immediately as it becomes available to prevent your heroes from dying. But as you attack more towers and do more campaign missions and things, you'll get a feel for how your hero cycles and things work, and how to time your abilities and your soul skills and whatnot accordingly. Now, very similar to the Grim Harvest as well, one thing I did want to note about that and about PvE farming in general is that the completion rewards for a stage are determined by the number of monsters in that stage. So anytime that we have special campaigns featured that have 3 or 5 floor rooms that have 6 to 9 monsters per stage, those are going to be high return stages for completion rewards. And occasionally you will have stages like the few of the ones in the Grim Harvest that have higher completion rewards than are available in the traditional campaign. At least to some degree. You know, they might not necessarily be higher than the final chapter of Chapter 6, but they will be higher than most of the easily farmable stages and things like that. Now you see, again, how high the Avenge, or the Melt Armor crits can be on some of these NPC mobs. It's definitely a very valuable skill on the Valkyrie. Unfortunately, the armor boost, or the damage boost to higher armor heroes is pretty negligible. It does give her a fair boost against tanks in tower attacks like the Covenant Guardians and the Suit of Arms, who have a fairly high armor rating. However, those Vampire Lords that do the gaseous form and give themselves the 98% bonus armor, she definitely punishes those guys with the melt armor quite a bit once they put that active buff up on themselves. Anyhow, we're going to be going in here to the final stage here on Extreme. And for the completion rewards, we're looking at a single Void Core, 20 gems, 5,000 gold, and 1 rare Rage Potion. It is important to note when we're talking about potions that the Resurrection the health and immunity potions are the most valuable potions here. The soul potions are unfortunately a fairly low amount of soul energy gained, even when you get up into the rare and super rare potions. And while the rage potions can be fairly valuable, you really have to time them perfectly and on the right heroes to get the most out of them. But the resurrection, heal, and immune potions are incredibly valuable for defeating difficult towers or difficult campaign missions. If you're struggling with that Marul's campaign and you're maybe getting all the way to the boss, but one of your heroes keeps dying, or you're getting random deaths here and there and things like that that are preventing you from defeating this stage, it might be worth picking up a potion pack and bringing a revive potion or an immunity potion in to avoid those random deaths. Now, here in this extreme stage, as you can see, the NPC levels haven't jumped too much. The concerns are going to be in the Inquisitor's Repentance, as well as the Cone of Fire and Avenge in the later two floors here. So as opposed to the earlier stages where we just kind of coasted through them, you're going to want to put up your shield tactics immediately to boost your backline's defense rating, because we're not using a taunter here in this setup. And then as soon as you have the soul energy for it, you're going to want to rip the melt armor on the more menacing enemies here in the back, the Inquisitors, the Vampire Lord on the final stage. And then once you've done those, to put up your AoEs. It is important to note that with these Dark Mist characters and these more dodgy heroes, you're going to have to rely a little bit on Righteous Call and Ball of Darkness, which are both undodgeable, and also makes them both incredibly valuable for soul generation, especially in these 6 and 9 enemy floors here. Righteous Call can be an incredibly potent soul generation ability. And this wonderful defy death, dodgy fools who take forever to kill. Oh, come on. That's just silly. Friggin' 4 defies in a row. Oh no, that's absurdity. But we made it through that one. And again, when you get into these ones, fortunately these sneak attackers aren't too high of level. You see sometimes in Catacombs you'll get the level 70 ones, which can be pretty menacing. But at level 57, if you need to, you can open this floor immediately with a shield tactics. Defense rating is the only thing that's going to help you from that true damage there. True damage does ignore your armor rating. And of course, if you're struggling with this particular campaign or with this particular setup, this is just a bit of a hodgepodge team I threw together here. You may want to consider moving the Valkyrie to the back, putting a taunter up front like the Knight. You may also want to consider adding a second healer as opposed to the War Master. So running the Cleric, the Warlock, the Druid, and the Templar, which is actually the team I run in tower attacks. And I can tell you now it's a very, very potent team in terms of survivability and damage output without really needing any buffs or debuffs and things like that to be successful. And you could always just rely on the Valkyrie for damage. Put the Knight up front, or even the Paladin for that group defense buff from Holy Shield, and then run your 2 healers on the top and the bottom here. And if you were to do that, you would want to set your Valkyrie up with the Shield of Wrath, the Righteous Bolt, Angelic Volley, and then for her passives, you're going to want to run the Counter passive and the Lightning Boost passives. And while I typically wouldn't advise using the Shield of Wrath, or not the Shield of Wrath, rather, the Angelic Volley, because it is a fairly long cooldown in these kinds of PvE stages and whatnot. For one, it serves as a great source of soul energy, and that little bit of AoE damage is going to help speed things up here. Now you do see that my cleric unfortunately killed herself there with the Avenge on Righteous Call, so you do have to be careful of that Vampire Lord's Avenges there in the back. Again, like we mentioned, you want to try and take those off with damage over time spells. But as you can see, it's a fairly quick little campaign here. Nothing too special. Again, so like I said, you guys that don't have the Valkyrie aren't really missing out on too much. We'll take a quick look here at the hard campaign rewards. I don't want to spend the time to go and clear all these earlier stages just to see the extreme rewards, but I imagine they're fairly similar to the others. But as you can see here, it's just mostly a mix of gold and training points, artisan points, a little bit of food, and of course that void core there at the end. And I'd say there's about a total of maybe 75 to 100 gems in here as well, which is a fairly welcomed boost to the gem totals. But there we have it. That is the new special campaign on the Valkyrie. It was a very fun one for me. I enjoyed it. And of course, we do want to remind you guys that the new Barbarian skin is out and on sale for the next 3.5 days or so here. This is a pretty cool one, I'd say. So if you want to check that one out or pick it up, make sure you do so while it's on sale. And I think that's about it. We've got about 2 days left in our training day event here, so make sure you guys use up them training points and reap the rewards from that. As you can see here, we're just about finished off with it ourselves. But again, if you guys have any questions and I'm not uploading any new videos in the next week or two, again, you can always get a hold of me on that Discord server. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the Keeper's Corner so that when we do get back to regular uploads, you guys can catch them as they come out. If you like the video, make sure you hit the like button, comment, all that good jazz that all these YouTube people say. And we will catch you guys on the next one. I hope you guys enjoyed it.